There you go.
And now give Marc make host. All right, you are now
Right.
Marc. It is all yours.
Okay, let's put this up. Okay, right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for turning up to our first conference of 2022, it should be said. My thanks again for Victor for organizing and hosting us again this evening. We will not, for once, be talking about military maneuvers, but we'll be starting a new series that I hope will be regular, something regular this year, which is the duties around the camp and the garrison, especially the duties which are interesting for us as reenactors in order to further improve our impressions at our events. So tonight we're looking at guard and sentry duty in the French Napoleonic army. Just as a little side note, having been in the French armed forces, I can tell you that about 85 to 90% of what you'll be seeing here is still how they do it now. So nothing much has changed apart from little details. So without further ado, let's have a look at what we're going to be looking at. So first of all, the first part we'll be looking at guard duty. We'll be starting from the generalities, how it's organized, who does what, who is in charge of what. And then afterwards, we'll be looking at how to change a guard. And then afterwards, we'll go straight into how to change sentries. We'll then look at sentry duty itself. Having done all that, we'll look at the checks that needs to be carried out by the guard and the sentries. The honors, we'll then have a look at the honors given by the guard. And finally, just miscellaneous, what happens during a guard at night, and what are the routines they have to go through in the morning. Okay, so let's have a look first of all at the generalities. Alors, when you look at French sources, that's why it's up there, they don't talk about service de garde, they don't use the word garde, they talk about service de police, policing service. You have to remember there is no police service in the sense as we understand it now. The army is not only military police, but it's also civilian police in the garrison towns where the troops are stationed. Hence why it's always referred to as le service de police within the French sources. So, generality. So, the strength of a guard is always decided by the unit commander, and it's usually under the command of a sergeant, which is known as a sergent de police, police sergeant, or under some form of junior officer. By junior officer, what I mean is anything from lieutenant all the way up to captain. And once the officer is selected, he'll be known as an officier de garde, a guard officer. For smaller posts, so that would be the main posts of your guard, they'd be in charge by either one of these two people. For smaller outlining posts, perhaps if you organize that, it is a corporal who is in charge, and he goes by the title of caporal de garde, guard corporal. Something else which is important, the guard, the main guardhouse, always has a drummer attached to it. Why? Simply because during the garrison or camp day, the different drum rolls to indicate when food is being distributed, when the troops have to muster, when the troops go out to gather to collect food or to do different chores. It's the drummer within the guardhouse, the poste de police, that does that. So basically that drummer becomes the entire garrison's clock by which everybody has to work to. Within the main guardhouse, the poste de police, there are also two corporals. One of them is called the caporal de consigne. So consigne is like a rule or an instruction. So instruction corporal, corporal of instruction. And the other one is caporal de pose. Pose is the French verb poser, which means to place or to position something. So I believe you can sort of guess what his role is going to be, but we'll be looking at it in a bit more detail later on. In the little outline posts, if they're anywhere a corporal is in charge of caporal de garde, there's only a corporal in there, so he is the caporal de garde, the caporal de consigne, and the caporal de poste. He has to do all this work himself. The functions of a guard generally, so guard includes sentries. They are part of the guard as well. They're responsible for maintaining an order and calm in the vicinity, including any civilian disputes within the garrison town that they're in. They also, as mentioned before, they're in charge of beating all the different drum rolls for the day and any extraordinary drum rolls. So if there's an alarm, it's the drummer within the poste de police, the guardhouse, that will have to execute this. They supply all the sentries, and they make sure also that no soldier leaves the garrison without being in the prescribed dress and without the proper authorization. That's very, very explicit. One thing I didn't make a note here is that normally a guard historically lasts 24 hours. It is 11 a.m. to 11 a.m. every day. So let's have a look now at the different people who've got something to do during guard duty, starting at the higher end of the hierarchy. So the officier de garde or the sergent de police, either your police sergeant or your guard officer. Again, it's one or the other that's in charge. They stay in the guardhouse throughout the entire time they're attached to it and they're in command. They may not venture far from it, except in one particular case, but we will talk about that a bit later on. They may inspect the immediate surroundings of the guardhouse if they deem it necessary. And just like the soldiers, they have to take their meals in the guardhouse, and the men are in the guardhouse also to eat there. They can't go back to their barrack rooms or their camp. And it is explicitly said that it is their comrades from their escouades or their company that bring the meals to the guardhouse for them. So there is almost, you can say, a table service for them. The officier de garde or the sergeant de police, he can assemble his guard outside with or without arms as often as he deems necessary, simply to get the men used to forming up, specifically in the guard formation. And this is pretty useful because the guard has to do honors for different sorts of officers that come before it, and they have to time it so that when everybody is out, the person riding past on a horse arrives just as everybody's formed up outside. So, and also if there is an alarm, they need to get out and form up quickly. So the officer or the sergeant commanding can make them drill as often as he deems necessary until it's perfect as he wants it. And of course, he lets no soldier of his guard stray from the guardhouse. You stay in the guardhouse. That's where you are for the next 24 hours, except if you're a sentry, in which case you'll be placed somewhere around the camp or the garrison. And if it happens to be the officer de garde, he must keep his gorget and his sword with him at all times. He cannot take them off. Next down is the caporal de consigne, which I will call the corporal of instruction in English. Why is a consigne? Simply, he's in charge of the soldiers of the guardhouse that are going to be carrying out the chores for the guardhouse. That's fetching wood or coal for the fire, going to get candles, that sort of thing. So he's in charge of organizing them and supervising them. And he makes sure that they are dressed in the appropriate dress to do this sort of work, which is they must be in veste gilet. They wear the bonnet de police, and but they carry their gibernes. Okay, normally this is the off-duty uniform or the undress uniform, but to indicate that the soldiers, yes, they're in undress, but they are still on duty. They keep their gibernes with them. So again, when the guard goes into its 24-hour rotations, it's wearing its service dress, so the blue coat, the shako or the bicorn, it depends what period, or the bonnet de police, it depends what corps. But there are moments where they will have to be wearing the undress, whether it's for work or whether it's after the garrison has closed its doors. But we'll talk about that later on. The caporal de consigne accompanies the soldiers on the chore duty, and he supervises their work. He doesn't just let them go and do the work. He has to be there to make sure they do it correctly. and that they come back. And he forbids the soldiers on short duty to carry wood or coal. They are not allowed to carry wood or coal because they are wearing white gilets or white vests. Having coal against white is probably not a good idea for cleanliness, so therefore he must make sure they use either a stretcher, a wheelbarrow, or a basket to transport the wood or the coal to and from the guardhouse. So that's what the caporal de consigne is there for. The caporal de pause, on the other hand, he's in charge of posting and changing the sentries of a guard. In regulations, it's every 2 hours, but this can be shortened to every hour if the weather is cold. He makes sure that the sentries can communicate between them, either directly verbally if they're close enough, or by using intermediate sentries. Basically, if the sentries are very far away from the guardhouse, from the officer or the sergeant in charge of the guard, he needs to make sure he puts enough sentries that are able to hear each other to pass the word down all the way to the guardhouse, should it be necessary to communicate with the sergeant or the officer in there. Before setting out to change the sentries, so when there's a sentry rotation, he assembles the new sentries on a single rank. He makes sure that the men's dress and arms are in good order, and once he's happy, he presents them to the guard commander, who then inspects them. And if he's happy, in that case, the rotation may take place. When he lines up the men, it is not by order of height, as if he was organizing them traditionally in a platoon. He actually organizes them in such a way that the first sentry that he puts down will be the greenest recruit of the batch, and the further out the sentry is from the guardhouse, the more experienced he needs to be. So that the first man he puts out will be the greatest recruit of the batch, and the last man will be the most experienced. And he also makes sure that he puts the greenest recruit on the sentry post, which is literally just outside the front door of the guardhouse. And when he goes out to change the sentries or bring back the sentries, he carries his muskets at the position of l'arme comme sergent. That's the advanced armed position. That's not normally how corporals carry their arms, but here he is conducting, he's commanding the sentries. So he does have the privilege at this instance to carry his musket like a sergeant. There is another person we have to talk about, which is the capitaine de police. He is not in a guardhouse. So if you imagine you have a regiment that is occupying a camp or a large garrison. So let's say this regiment has 3 battalions. Each of those battalions will be organizing its own poste de garde with its own capitaine de garde, its own corporal de pose et de consigne, sergent de garde, etc. But within each battalion, there is one captain that will be selected, and he will be the police captain. He's in charge of the details of the guard, the discipline, and the standing orders of the regiment. In essence, he's the guy that that gives out the exact information of the day and the exact instruction on how the guard is to be carried out that particular day, and he watches over it. So that's one captain in the regiment, and it's every day. So if you can imagine that there are 3 battalions, that's, if there's 6 company battalions, that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, that's 18 captains. So every 18th day, one of the captains will be the capitaine de police, who will be supervising the entire police guard set up for the camp or the garrison that this regiment finds itself in. And we find this, whether it's in the 1792 editions of the regulations governing guard and discipline and sentry duties, or the 1809 editions, they're almost word for word the same things. So that's, he's not in the post, this is a little bit higher up. So who is actually in command of what? How does it actually work? Well, the guardhouse is under the direct orders of the capitaine de police. On a reenactment, you can attribute the functions of the capitaine de police to the adjutant major of the entire camp, for example. Instead of finding a captain to do this, it can be assimilated to how we use adjutant majors. Written orders are only issued by the colonel of the regiment or the garrison commander. And verbal daily orders are given by senior officers and adjutants. And the adjutant des men, so the weekly duty adjutant, he is specifically in charge of the guardhouse and everything is connected. So he's actually the guy that will be doing the link between the capitaine de police, the colonel, that higher up brass, and the guard post. He actually goes in and makes sure that the instructions that have been given are being followed. And if there's any failures in that, he reports that obviously to the capitaine de police or the colonel. So having seen generally how and why a guard is put in place and who does what, let's have another look at an important aspect of the guard, which is the control and surveillance of the troops and of civilian people within their authority. So how do they keep order and control? Very simple. First of all, one of the first method is the patrouille, patrols. Now, patrols only take place at night. They are not done during the day. There's something else that happens during the day, but the patrols specifically happen at night. And their purpose is to make sure that everything outside of the camp or the garrison is in good order. So they're the ones that'll be going around town, making sure that there's no drunk guys having fights, that nobody's stealing anything, that no ladies or gentlemen are being harassed or attacked in dark alleys. That's their job. And the patrol is comprised of a corporal and 2, 4, or 6 privates, no more. And the capitaine de police describes, he's the one who describes how many patrols take place and at what times. The patrols don't go where they want. They are given a set itinerary to follow, that they have to follow, which will make them go through different posts. And as they go through different posts, they have to make sure that they get registered as having gone past that certain post. It's almost like a relay as a way to control, to make sure that the corporal and his guys, once they've left the garrison to do their patrol, are not just going off and having a drink or disappearing somewhere for a few hours and then coming back. So before the patrol goes back, the corporal will be issued with something called marron. Marron is the color brown in French, but it's also the chestnut. And this is not a chestnut that he's actually given. It's a disc, normally a wooden disc, a flat wooden disc, and there is a number noted on it, like number 1, number 2, number 3, or a time which is noted on it. This is simply either the number of the patrol. So if you're the first patrol, you will have the number 1 on a set of marrons that were given to you. Let's imagine there are 4 posts, 4 guard houses or posts you have to go through. You will have 4 marrons, and each of them, if you're the first patrol, will have 1, or it will have the time it takes that you were sent out. Okay. As you arrive to each post, you go in, you hand this the marron, that gets put in a tin box, and in the morning, all the tin boxes are brought in, emptied, and we can see who has actually done the rounds or not. And also the corporal has to sign the registre. So that's the register. It's a form that's within each guard post, just basically to indicate what's happened. So all the movements that's happened within the guard, plus any of these visits that you get during the night or during the day. So he hands the marron in, he signs the form, indicating the time of the number of men making up his patrol, and then he'd carry on along his way until the next post, where he will give another marron and again sign the register there with the time and number of men making up the patrol. If they come across the regulations, it says if they come across troublesome people, soldiers that are absent without leave after la retraite, so that's tattoo in modern military, modern British military tattoo. When the garrison doors are closed, all the soldiers have to be back, except if they have permission to stay outside. So if they find soldiers after la retraite without permission, they're immediately arrested. They close the public houses, so the pubs, the bars, they're the ones who close them. The theaters, they're the ones who close the cabarets, they're the ones who make sure it's closed. And they make sure as they're going along, because they're going along the circuit where the sentries are posted, that the latter are attentive to their duties. So this happens at night, simply as a means of closing everything down in the town and making sure everyone goes back to their dwellings or back to barracks. So that's one form of control that the guard has over the garrison. The other one is the ronde. So it's called the ronde in the regulations, but they do make a point of saying that the ronde is only when it happens at night. When the exact same thing almost happens during the day, it's called a visit, une visite, okay? And this is not to be confused with the ronde majeure, which is the next control we'll be talking about. So here we're talking about ronde simple, visite simple, simple rounds, simple visits, okay? Their objective is a way to make sure that the sentries are doing their jobs, and also to have a look at what's happening outside. So the patrols, again, it's to have a look at what's going on outside the garrison, but it's at night. Here, visits during the day, so that's control during the day, checking out what's happening outside during the day, and you have rondes, that's at night. Rondes are undertaken either by sergeants or officers that are specifically ordered to do this. It's not an officer who decides, or a sergeant, hey, I'm going to do the rounds just to make sure everyone's okay. No, the capitaine de police will indicate what officer or sergeant does the round or the visit and the time. And he will also, if necessary, indicate what part of the garrison he will do his round. He's not necessary. Maybe the garrison is so big you can't ask one person to do it. You might have to ask several people to do different parts of it. That's the rounds at night. The visits, though, that's the rounds during the day, they're undertaken by the adjutants. Again, whether they're rounds or visits, everybody is issued with a bunch of marrons, a bunch of tokens. On the tokens, it's written the number or the time that it takes place, and every time that they go through a post, they have to drop their token in the little tin box. And here they just sign the register. They don't have to indicate numbers of men or times. They just sign the register because it's just them that's doing the round. They're not accompanied by anybody. And finally, the last control that a guard has over the garrison is called the ronde majeure. Okay, so this is the major round, I suppose you could translate it. So don't get this confused with the ordinary rounds or visits. This is a way to control the different posts, see what's happening in the different posts at night. Okay, so the visit during the day is for the sentries, and because he's going in the post, he can have a look in there. But this is specifically at night to find out what's happening in the post, not so much how the sentries are doing their job. It's always an adjutant that carries this out, and he is ordered to do it at a certain time of the night. And again, he is issued with a bunch of tokens, a bunch of marrons, which he puts in the little box as he goes through each post, and he signs the register without indicating anything else. Okay, so he's there in essence to have a chat with the post commander to see what's happening during the night, if there are any problems, if he's seen anything, etc., etc. So that's the ronde majeure, and it happens once a day at night. Now that we've had a look at this, let's get into a little bit more details. How do we change a guard? So we know that a guard is regulations say it's 24 hours, 11 to 11, but there's a whole process of getting a new guard ready to replace an old one. So let's take a look at this. First of all, the positions of officers, NCOs, and drummers are not the same within a guard setup than a platoon standard battle setup. Every time the guard meets to form up, the different cadre, that's the NCOs and the officer, will take up very specific positions. If the guard is commanded by an officer, the officer is in the center, 2 paces in front of the first rank, and that's where his position will be permanently throughout the movements of this changing of the guard. The sergeant will be on the left of the first rank, and the drum will be on the right of the first rank, and the 2 corporals they're in the ranks on either side as well. If the guard is commanded by an NCO, so this is a corporal for a little post, or it's a sergeant if there's no officers to do the guard at a big post. In that case, the NCO commander will be on the right of the first rank, and the drummer will be on the right of that commanding NCO. So not the same setup as a battalion in battle order, where the officer is on the right with a covering sergeant behind him, and sergeants in the supernumerary rank with other officers. It's a little bit different. How does it happen? Very simple. So first of all, 9 a.m. every day, the caporal de semaine, the weekly duty corporal. If you've seen my video presentation about the duties of the corporal, it's all in there explaining what this weekly duty corporal does. But he inspects the men of the new guard. So out they come in the prescribed order of dress for the guard, and the corporal, caporal de semaine, inspects them. If there's anything that needs changing, he will make sure to tell the men, and they will make sure they get it done. 9:30, half an hour later, the sergeant de semaine, the weekly duty sergeant, he inspects this new guard, and he inspects the caporal de semaine at the same time. Anything lacking, again, he gets it sorted, rectified. At 10:30, the sergeant de semaine takes the men of the new guard to the officier de semaine, the weekly duty officer, and this latter person, this officer, again does an inspection. So we've had 3 inspections. These guys have had 3 inspections within the space of an hour and a half. Okay, and again, what are these inspections supposed to be in aid of? Simply to make sure that the soldiers are dressed as standing orders require for that particular duty, and to make sure that they're in good working order. So if this, again, the standing orders are issued every day for all sorts of things, notably how to dress. They will say, today undress is this, service dress is this, guard dress is this, drill dress is this. And when you turn up, you have to be dressed as it is explained. If it says, for example, mittens are forbidden, or it doesn't mention mittens being part of the guard dress, and you turn up wearing mittens, guess what? You're going to get in trouble. That's not on the list. You don't do it. You don't take initiatives. You just follow what's written. And it's not yet finished either. At 11:15, the adjudant de semaine, the weekly duty adjutant, he gets le rappel to be beaten. So it's a specific French drum roll. And when this is beaten, the sergeant, weekly duty sergeant, gathers the men once more. And this time he will form them in a single rank by company of origin. The guard is not drawn from one particular company. It's the entire battalion or the entire camp which will give different numbers of men according to how the captain, the police organizes the duties. And at this point, up to now, they were all on a single rank being inspected. Here now, they're going to be placed on a single rank, but by company. So for example, if we can imagine that for a specific guard, company number 1 has given 15 men, they'd be all lined up, 15. Company number 2 would be behind them, and they've only given 7 men, so there'd be 7 lined up here. Company number 3 might be given 20, so they line up with 20, and so on. So each rank represents a company, so it's easier to find when the adjutant does his inspection to find out what man belongs to what company and where he is within the documentation. They're formed up in open ranks, and once the adjutant de semaine is happy, he accompanies the officier de garde. This is the guard officer. He's turned up, and he's going to do an inspection now. If there is no officier de garde, if there is a sergeant de police that's in charge of this guard and not an officer, then the adjutant conducts the inspection. So again, you've had 3, 4. This is now the 5th inspection. And finally, once they're happy, the officier de garde and the adjutant de semaine are happy, they are led away to the main camp square or garrison square, and they're inspected once more by the capitaine de police. So it's again control, making sure everybody is perfectly well dressed, the weapons are in working order, and everything is fine and ready to clock on. Finally, when the capitaine de police inspection is finished, then the commander of the new guard leads his men to the poste de police, the guard house, and that's when the ceremony of the changing of the guard takes place. So you've got all these inspections normally that happen prior to the guard going out to make sure the guard is perfectly dressed and ready for this duty.
Quick question.
Yes.
All of this is for the new guard. Is there a similar set of inspections for the current guard that's going to be replaced?
The old guard during this entire time is still carrying out its duties within the guard posts. So they still have sentries out and they still have soldiers in the guard post ready to react if needs be. They don't need to do any inspections simply because technically they've been vetted 24 hours prior. So at the moment, during all of this, the old guard is still sitting doing its job.
Okay.
Okay. So the new guard, it's left, final inspection's good. So the officier de police, the officier de garde, takes the men away. They march off at l'arme au bras and in silence. And when they are 50 paces from the poste de police, the officer or the sergeant commands the men to carry their arms, the shoulder arms, and the drummer who accompanies them starts to beat la marche. So he beats time. When the drummer of the new guard starts to beat time, that's the signal to the old guard commander to get his men outside with weapons. And he organizes the men in the following way. So if it's a small post, less than 6 men, it's on a single rank. If it's more than 12 men, it's on 2 ranks, and 18 men or more, it's on 3 ranks. But still, with the officer in front, the sergeant on the right, and the drummer on the left, etc. It depends what configurations that particular guard is, as we've seen before. So as soon as he hears the new guard's drummers beating, that's the signal for him to gather everybody outside and get ready for the protocol. When he's forming up his guard outside, he needs to bear in mind that he has to leave enough space for the new guard to form to the left. Okay, so the new guard forms to the left of the old guard. However, if there's not enough space to do this, then it is authorized for the old guard to form up facing in front of and facing the guardhouse. And he has to put his guard in a place so that in such a way that the new guard will then form up between him, his guard, and the guardhouse. So standard, the new guard forms on the left of the old guard. If there's not enough space, in that case, the new guard will be between the guardhouse and the old guard. There will be one behind the other. Everybody's arrived, everybody's in their place, halt. At that point, the officers and sergeant of both guards march up to each other, and the old guard officers and sergeants will verbally give any and all instructions that they had previously received to their new colleagues. Okay. Once that's done, the commander of the new guard orders his caporal de poste to go to go and survey the guardhouse. So once the instructions have been handed over, the new guard commander orders his caporal de consigne to go into the guardhouse and inspect it. If it's a small post, then in that case, the caporal de garde in charge of that new guard, he does the inspection because there's only him to do it. The caporal de consigne of the new guard goes in, he checks the guard room, he makes sure there is nothing broken, there is nothing damaged, there's no degradations, the place is clean, the place is well maintained. He is also, during all of this, accompanied by the caporal de consigne of the old guard. Okay, and basically his role is just to make sure everything is in proper order when he gets handed over, simply because when he comes out, he's going to tell his officer, yep, everything's good, we'll take it as it is. And if he misses something, for example, if he's missed that, let's say the guys have smashed a lantern, for example, and he didn't notice it, he missed it. When they leave, let's suppose the caporal de consigne of the new guard, he'll spot it and mention it. Obviously, you can say, well, it wasn't us because it was like that when we took it. It wasn't us. Well, sorry, we've just noticed it now. You're the ones that were in it, so it's you that's going to pay, and it's the NCOs and the officers of the guard that pay for any and all damages that take place. So he's got quite an important. He's got a quite important role to make sure everything is nice, so that nobody takes the blame further on. So once that's happened, at the same time as this is happening with the caporal de consigne, the commander of the new guard carries out an inspection of arms of his entire guard. Well, it takes a certain time to go and inspect the guardhouse, so this is also a good way of keeping the men busy. Once this is done, he then designates the first set of sentries, and he commands première pose en avant. Première pose, so first placement, first sentries, the first rotation forward. At that command, the caporal de pose comes out, and the designated soldiers also come out, and they will form on him a single rank. Okay, and the caporal de pose will place himself on the right of the men. And once he's placed himself on the right of the men, he orders l'arme au bras. When the commander is designating these men for the first round of sentries, he will be saying who goes first, who gets dropped off first, and who gets dropped off last, again, based upon the experience that the men have. The commander of the new guard, once the men are out and lined up, then orders the caporal to relieve the sentries, accompanied by the caporal de pose of the old guard. So they will go off together. So the new sentries of the new guard go off with their caporal de pose, and they are accompanied by the caporal de pose of the old guard. Once the poste de police, the guardhouse, has been inspected, the two caporal de pose come back. They give a report to the commander of the new guard, and if they're happy, they're then dismissed and they go back and join their ranks. At that point, the commanders of both guard then inspect the surroundings of the guardhouse, and the old guard commander will give any and all indications or information about the surrounding areas at that point to his colleague. All the while, the men have to wait at the back. Once that's done, they come back, and everybody has to wait the return of the sentries. Okay, so just a general information: a sentry, once he has been placed, may only be given new instructions and may only be relieved by the same corporal that put him there. Hence why when the sentries of the new guard go out for the first rotation, so they have to relieve the last rotation of the old guard, that's why the old guard caporal de pose accompanies them. Otherwise, those soldiers do not move. Once that rotation is finished and the guard sentries come back with their corporal and the corporal of the new guard, the sentries of the old guard take their place within the ranks of the old guard. The commander then gets the whole to shoulder arms, and they march off. And when they march off, both drummers, the drummers of the old and the new guard, they beat la marche, they beat time. Once the old guard is 50 paces away from the poste de police, the commander of the old guard halts the men, and at that point, at halt, the drummers stop beating. So the new drummer can stop beating and goes into the guardhouse at that point, and the new drummer, the old drummer, just stops beating and can maybe sling his drum if he's given the order. But in any case, the men, they're ordered to unfix bayonets at that point, and then afterwards they shoulder arms and adopt the arme au bras position. So as the new guard came in silence in l'arme au bras the old guard, once 50 paces away, adopts the same position. Once the soldiers are at l'arme au bras, the old guard commander, if he's an officer, he just orders the sergeant or the senior corporal, if there isn't a sergeant, to take the men back to barracks, and then he goes. He doesn't have to take the men back himself. However, if it's a sergeant or corporal that's commanding the guard, they can't do that. They can't delegate. They have to take the men back themselves. Okay. And any NCO that fails to bring back a guard in good order and silence gets put into prison. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. And that's the protocol to change the guard. So that's 11 o'clock every day. That's what happens. Just one more thing. When the old guard marches off, the commander of the new guard, so while they're going off, he gives the order demi-tour droite, right about face, haut les armes. That's the order you give just before ranks break up. It's like a present arms, but it's a lot higher up. Basically, it's you've got the cock of the musket almost at chin level, and it's in between the eyes. And he then orders marche. At the word marche, it just means break rank. So the men break rank and they go into the guard room and they put the muskets away on the musket horses. As soon as the men get into the poste de police, the commander immediately goes to visit his sentries, and this is the only time he's allowed to go far from his from the guardhouse. That first time where he goes and sees where the sentries are placed. Once he's back at the post, he reads all the instructions. There's a special book called Le Livret de Police. That's got all the last 24-hour movements in there. There is also written instructions posted on the walls, so he has to read all of them. And then afterwards, he has to bring his two corporals and his sergeant to him and tell them any and all information that they need to know for the guard for the next 24 hours. So a lot of reading. Now we're going to look at actually the sentries. How do we change sentries? So first of all, as mentioned before, we've seen we just talked about the first rotation when a new guard arrives. Every rotation will afterwards, so every hour, if it's cold, every 2 hours, if it's not cold, the caporal de pause forms his men, his sentries, on a single rank, always making sure that the most experienced soldiers are at the end and the least experienced soldiers are at the beginning. He inspects the weapons and the uniforms, and if he's satisfied, he then invites the commander of his guard to come and do his own inspections. If something's wrong, he promptly fixes the problem, whether it's something to do with the men's arms or dress. And then if the commander is happy, the caporal de poste can take his men out to relieve the sentries. And for this, he carries his musket in the position of arme comme sergent. And the sentries follow him directly in a single rank. So the sentries that haven't yet been placed, or those that have been relieved, they halt 6 paces from a sentry. So your new sentries, you're marching along, the corporal's in front, everybody's following behind. 6 paces away from a sentry that has to be relieved, halt. The whole lot stops. Afterwards, the caporal de pause and the new sentry, so that's the man that will be immediately behind him, they advance to the old sentry, and the new sentry is placed on the left of the old one. The caporal de pause will then command the sentries to face each other by giving the orders à droite et à gauche, gauche, droite, to the left and to the right and left, left, right, right being the execution. So they face each other and they present arms. At that point, the old sentry will verbally give all the instructions to the new one. Okay, so the first time he gets posted there, his corporal will tell him everything he needs to know, everything he needs to respect. And then he has to transmit this to the new sentry. While this is happening, as you can see in the picture, the corporal de pause is listening to what's going on. And if necessary, he corrects any erroneous information that is given, or he adds any information should the old sentry forget to mention something. Afterwards, once the transmission of information has been completed, the caporal de pause gets the sentries to shoulder arms. He makes them face the left and right, and then he just orders march. At the command march, the caporal de poste and the old sentry rejoin the other sentries waiting 6 paces away. and the new one will sidestep into the position of where the old sentry was standing. And then the caporal de poste puts the old sentry at the back of the rank, and then marches off to the next sentry to be relieved. And the whole system is repeated once more when they get to a new one, and it keeps going until all the sentries have been relieved. Something specific happens regarding the sentry that's outside of the post. Now, if you remember, the sentry that's just outside the guard house, he's the least experienced soldier of the rank of sentries that's going out at that point. What if he's being relieved? When he gets relieved, he'll be the first one to be relieved. He does not go to the end of the queue and follow the rest of the sentries all the way around. Okay, he gets a privilege. As soon as he's relieved, he goes straight into the guard room directly. He doesn't go at the back. But every other sentry after him, they have to go at the back of the queue and follow the corporal and do the entire circuit with him. So the sentry outside the post, the least experienced soldier, as soon as he is relieved, he just goes straight back into the guardhouse. What checks should a caporal de poste be carrying out each time he's going to relieve his sentry? So when he places the sentry, so when they're doing this transmission of orders, or at that point, he checks that the sentry box is clean, that there is no stone for sitting that has been placed in proximity. And if this isn't the case, if the sentry box is unclean, or if they have been bringing stones in order for them to have chairs outside because it's too hot, he gets the problem resolved. He gets the stone cleared away. He gets the sentry box clean, and as soon as he gets back to the guardhouse, he immediately reports the incident to the guard commander, and then the guard commander will take disciplinary action against that particular sentry, because he would also be back in the guard post at that point. Once he's dropped off all his sentries and he's come back with the old sentries, the caporal de poste again forms them up on a single rank. He goes to get the guard commander and he presents the old sentries to him, so that the guard commander, yes, okay, I can see that everybody has come back and that they are in this state or that state, etc. And he reports anything that is necessary, like unclean boxes, or Jean-Louis was not in the same place I left him, etc. If the commander of the guard is happy, satisfied, the caporal de poste will then dismiss the sentries by ordering demi-tour droite, right about face, haut les armes, the famous putting the musket in between your eyes with the cock of the musket almost up to your chin, and then orders march to break ranks. Soldiers break ranks at that point, go into the guardhouse and put their muskets in the musket horse, or the musket ranks inside. So far, so good, everybody? Yep. Sounds like it, so I'll carry on. Let's have a look at this sentry duty in more detail. So you've been put out, you know how to put a sentry, you know if your sentry, what's expected of you at the moment of doing the rotation. Now let's have a look at what you're supposed to remember, the famous exchange of information. These are the sorts of information that will be exchanged and told to you. So first of all, let's talk about the generalities of sentry duties during the day. So sentries must never be relieved or given new instructions other than by the caporal de poste that placed them. Again, hence why when the new guard arrives, the caporal de poste of the old guard has to accompany them. Sentries must always have bayonets fixed and never have their locks covered. Sentries shall carry their muskets in one of the following positions: l'arme au bras, reposer arme, or porter arme. You can't carry the musket any other way. However, if the weather is bad, muskets can be placed in the positions of l'arme sous le bras gauche. Sentries are forbidden to leave their weapons at any point, even inside the sentry box. They can't just leave it inside the sentry box and go outside, especially to sit on a stone that they've just rolled up next to it. Sentries are also not allowed to sit, read, sing, whistle, or talk if it's not necessary. Okay, so if the caporal de pause or a senior officer is coming along and asks you a question, you answer him. You don't just say, "No, sorry, I've been told I can't talk, so I'm not talking." So it's talk if not necessary. Sentries are not allowed to stray more than 30 paces from their position. So this is one of the information that will be exchanged. You can't go further than 30 paces from this spot. And sentries do not tolerate any rubbish in the proximity to their position. Any sentry that fails to observe these simple instructions is to be punished after the guard has been relieved. Though by punish, I'm talking prison or guard room. If necessary, the only thing the guard commander could do to him is maybe make him do extra chores during his guard rotation, or maybe make him do extra sentry rotations. That's the only thing he's allowed to do within the guard. You can't arrest somebody in the guard and take him out. You have to wait until the guard is relieved, and then you can punish him properly. Again, sentries must stop any soldier. This is the sentry that's outside the post. So this is the least experienced sentry of the rotation who is outside the guard post. His job is to stop any soldier or NCO leaving the garrison that hasn't been authorized to do so by the commander of the post. So if he sees somebody just going straight past the guardhouse and not going in to register register with the guard commander, he stops him and sends him back. That sentry must also stop anybody entering the camp or the garrison without first being presented to the commander of the post. Again, you don't just come in and you don't just go out. You have to go through the guard post in order to get permission, or at least to show that you have permission to come in or come out. And the sentry must indicate to the commander of the post when the guard needs to come out with arms. In that case, he will shout aux armes, or without arms. He will shout haut la garde. We're going to talk about the honors due by the guard for different military people during the day. This is the job of the sentry outside of the post, to make sure he gives the right order depending on how high up the person is. He will give a aux armes, in which case the guard comes out with muskets, or hors la garde, come out the guard, and that means come out without your weapons. Again, we'll have a look at the details of these honors a little bit later on, but that's the sentry outside of the guard's house role to shout that out. Perimeter sentry. So we've talked about the sentry that's outside the guardhouse. All the other sentries, they're perimeter sentries. They're sentries that are supposed to be keeping an eye on what's happening outside. So perimeter sentries must challenge each time they spot more than 4 men in arms coming towards them. Okay, even if they are part of the garrison or the camp, you have to challenge them. Even if they are your mates, your escort buddies, if there are 4 more of them with arms coming towards you, you have to challenge them. And the sentry must also stop anyone entering or leaving his perimeter without calling for the corporal to verify his passport, except senior officers of the camp or the garrisons, or any person that has been specifically mentioned by the corporal. This is part of the consigne, of the instructions of the day. Maybe the colonel says there will be this particular sergeant, he has a special mission, for example. Therefore, nobody is to challenge this sergeant when he's doing this mission, because he has to go in and out of the camp. So this will go down to the guardhouse. It will be part of the instructions that will then be transmitted to the caporal de poste to give to all the different sentries out there. So it has to be specific, or they have to be senior officers. And finally, a sentry, a perimeter sentry, warns the corporal and checks any vehicles, so any wagons, that wish to enter the perimeter. They don't just come in. So in essence, everybody wants to come in, except if they're senior officers of the camp or specific people that have been specifically mentioned. It's stop, wait. We're going to have to control who you are and see if you're allowed to come in or go out. Sentries have to give certain military courtesies, honors during the day. There are two parts to this, okay? The first part is he halts, faces to the front, and presents arms. Who does he present arms for? Very simple, His Imperial Majesty the Emperor, princes, marshals, ministers, inspecteurs-en-chef, so that's inspectors of the army, commissaires généraux, I believe there's some sort of glorified quartermaster, adjutant commandants, general officers, so that's general of divisions, general of brigades, the commander of the garrison, and senior officers, colonel, major, chef de bataillon. That for these men, he halts, faces to the front, and presents arms during the day. There's no honors to be given during the night. Everybody else, he halts, faces to the front, and he shoulders arms. Shoulder arms is a salute. There are two salutes with the muskets in the French army. One of them is the shoulder arms, the porte-armes, and the other one is presenting arms, the présenter-armes. So he shoulders arms for inspectors and sous-inspecteurs au revue, officers and members of the Legion of Honor, bearing their medals, of course, commissaire de guerre, and for all other officers, adjutants, captains, lieutenants, sub-lieutenants, he shoulders arms for them at that point during the day. Let's have a look at what the sentry has to do at night. Okay, there's a little mistake. It says day. This is during the night. So after la retraite is beaten, so la retraite, again, in British military traditions, it's called tattoo. So basically, when the doors of the garrisons close, when every soldier that has to be in quarters or in camp, except if they have permission to be outside, from that moment onwards, as soon as he hears or sees somebody approaching his position, he is to cry out, qui vive, who lives. I suppose you could translate that better by saying who goes there, but literally means who lives. If the person isn't approaching his position, he's just going in front of him, the sentry leaves him alone. He's to remain silent. It specifically said if he hears or spots somebody coming towards him. If having challenged him with the qui vive, if the individual stops, the sentry then must uncover his identity. Okay, he has to find out if it's a ronde. Is it the ronde majeur? Is it a patrouille? Is it something else? Okay. However, if the individual does not stop and the sentry shouts out qui vive 3 times, if the individual continues to approach him without answering, the sentry must call out halte là, halt there, and warn the individual that he's about to fire. If the individual continues to approach, the sentry gives fire and calls for the guard to come out with the cry of aux armes, to arms. It could be the enemy. Sentries at night do not give honors to any, whether it be the emperor or officers or anything like that. That stops during the night. The only thing they do now is they give courtesies, honors to rounds, the ronde majeur. Any and all formed troops under arms are authorized to come in, and they only have to halt, face to the front, and present arms. So at night, it's only the ronde majeur, and any formed troops are authorized to come in that you present arms to.
Mark, I would assume that when someone is challenged, there's a password they would have to give.
Absolutely, but that's coming later. I'll go into a bit more detail later on about that. But yes, there is a whole protocol. But we'll look at that a little bit later, if you just let me get to it. So first of all, determining if it's a ronde, the ronde majeur, or a patrol at night. Okay, you need to, once you've said qui vive, the guy in front has to say something specific. So now we go into the details. So you shout, you've heard someone coming towards you, you see him because it's good moonlight, you shout qui vive, the guy stops and he shouts either ronde or patrouille. Having heard this, you as the sentry have to shout halte là, caporal, venez reconnaître ronde, halt there, corporal, come and recognize the round, if he shouts round, the guy. If he shouts patrouille, you shout halte là, caporal, venez reconnaître patrouille, corporal, come and recognize the patrol. Okay, if you are not immediately within shouting distance of the guard post or the post where the corporal is, You shout it to the next sentry down, and he will shout it down to the next one, and so on, all the way down to the guard post. If it's the ronde major that you've just stopped, you will always shout qui vive, and the person will shout ronde major. At that point, you shout halte là, caporal aux armes, ronde major. You shout halt, corporal to arms, the major round is doing the rounds. Okay, so that's the challenge that the sentry does. He does not need the password, Victor. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, so the sentry does not need the passwords. That's why he's calling the corporal, because the corporal, he has the passwords. You have different alarms as well. That's why you're out there looking at things. If there's any alarms that need to be mentioned, then they need to go travel down the line to the guardhouse and be dealt with. What sort of alarms are sentries responsible for? The first one is what they call noise alarm. So basically, if a sentry sees or hears a quarrel, a fight, loud voices arguing near his position, he must call out à la garde. Again, if he's too far away from the post, it goes down from sentry to sentry. À la garde, to the guard come to me. And so it passes down sentry to sentry. So the poste de police has to go to the main post, not the little post. And the guard commander then sends several soldiers with the sergeant all the way up to this position, and they take care of the incident. Fire alarm. What happens if there's a fire? Should a sentry see a fire, he'll shout au feu, fire. Message passes all the way down to the guardhouse, the poste de police. However, on the way down, if there is a little post nearby, or if there is a post to another guard, not specifically yours, but another guard, if they get wind of it, the commander of that post, the nearest post to the alarm, he sends a corporal and 2 privates, and they come and evaluate the fire. If the corporal believes that, yes, this is a dangerous fire, this might get out of hand, then he immediately sends his soldiers to the poste de garde, the mayor, the principal one, and they warn the commander that it's a pretty big fire, we need a bit of help. And at that point, the commander of the poste de garde sends another corporal with 6 or more privates, depending on how bad the situation is. And their job is to secure the area and allow the effective passage of the emergency services. So the firefighters, they have to clear the area for them. And of course, you have the alarms of troops approaching from the outside. So you have day and night. It's not quite the same thing. So during the day, as soon as a sentry, again, sees more than 4 armed men approaching, even if they are part of his garrison, even if they are his mates, he calls out, halte là, halt there. Once the troop has stopped, the sentry then calls to the sergeant from the guardhouse. So the call is, sergent, venez reconnaître troupe. Yeah, that's venez reconnaître troupe. That passes all the way down to the post. At that point, in the sentry, he's, by the way, he's got his muskets in the make-ready position, the apprêté arms position, and he watches the troop until the sergeant arrives. The sergeant arrives alone, there's no escort. And at that point, the sergeant will then go and do a certain protocol. All the while, the sentry at the back, he's at the ready, just in case it goes wrong. We'll talk about what the sergeant does in a bit more detail in a moment. If at the halte là of the sentry, the troop continues to come forward, the sentry is to shout halte là 3 more times and then tell them that he's about to fire. If they still come onto his position, he gives fire, and then afterwards the sentry passes down the word aux armes all the way down to the line of sentries to the poste de garde so that they can come and reinforce the position. Checks. So this is the sentry has called out, there's a round, there's a patrol, there's the round major, there's someone else, there's a troop that's coming. What happens? What happens once the corporal or the sergeant arrives? What kind of checks happen now? So, troops coming in from the outside. Sergeant and 4 privates are sent forth. Out of the troop normally is to you invite the troop 30 paces from the sentry. So because remember, the sentry is supposed to have said halt to the approaching troops as soon as he sees them. Once the sergeant gets there, he lets the troop approach 30 paces from them. The sergeant will then shout, qui vive, who lives, who's there, who's that. The commander of the troop must shout France. The sergeant then shouts, quel régiment, what regiment? The troop commander gives the response, and the sergeant will shout, halte là, halt. At that point, he goes forward alone to identify the troop. If he's satisfied that, yes, this is a friendly group, he will then signal to the sentry at the back and the four privates, it's okay, he's coming through. And then this troop has to be accompanied by the sergeant all the way to the guardhouse, where they will be further identified and recognized and registered. Okay, so that's, there's no password needed here. They just have to make sure that it is a friendly troop. This is, again, this is for 4 guys of your garrison that have gone outside with arms. If they come back, this is the process they have to go through in order to be able to come back in. If it's a round or patrol, so your sentry has done his job correctly, qui vive, ronde, halte là, caporal, venez reconnaître, ronde, okay? At that point, the corporal arrives from the post and he goes all the way to where the sentry raised the alarm. Once he's arrived, the corporal shouts out, qui vive, who lives, who are you? And the person who's been waiting there all the time now shouts either ronde or patrouille, depending what he is. The corporal then shouts, avancez à l'ordre, come forward on order. So come forward order in ordinary time, don't come running at me. Once this person is before the corporal presents arms and he gives le mot, okay, the word, the famous password, Victor, the word. The password is actually not one word, it's comprised of 2 separate words. The first part is called le mot, the word, and the second one is called le mot de ralliement, the rallying word. So it's often a combination of a marshal and something else that rhymes. So the corporal gives the first part of the password, and the person has to give the second part of the password. If the second part of the password is correct, that means the ronde or the patrol is legitimate. At that point, the corporal accompanies the ronde, the sergeant or the officer conducting the ronde that night, and that's when, all the way back to the post, and that's when he takes the marron off him and he gets him to sign off on the register before letting him carry on his way. Same thing with the patrol. The corporal will accompany, will bring the patrol corporal and his men to his post. He will take the marron off them and he will get the corporal to sign off, also indicating the time and the number of men of the patrol, and then he will let them carry on along the way. If the ronde or the patrol is fake, the corporal arrests absolutely everybody, puts everybody in his post, and sends word to the guardhouse, the poste de police, that they send men to bring the prisoners to be interrogated if necessary. Okay, that's at night. Remember, the ronde is at night and the patrol is at night. During the day, you have visits, and the visits are the adjutants that do it. But it follows the exact same procedure as a ronde. They arrive, they would say visit. There would be the same control with the mot and the mot de ralliement, and then afterwards there would be the take him back to the post, take the marron, and get him to sign off. The ronde major is a little bit different. If it's a corporal that's in charge of a post, remember the main guardhouse is under the charge of a sergeant, or it's under the charge of an officer. Little posts, if it's a very big garrison, you might have little posts under the charge of a corporal. So if the ronde major comes across a post that's in charge of a corporal, the sentries would already have sent down the message, caporal, ronde major hors la garde. Corporal is the major round, get the guard out. Once he receives this, the corporal promptly gets his guard outside under arms and placed on a single rank. Once they're all lined up, the corporal leaves them and he goes all the way up to the sentry that has raised the alarm. Once he's arrived, the corporal shouts, qui vive, who are you? The person once more will shout, ronde major. The corporal will then again answer, tell him, avancez à l'ordre, come forth. Once the person is before the corporal, again, the corporal presents arms, he gives the mot, the first part of the password, and the person then gives the second part. If the round is legitimate, the corporal accompanies this person back to his post. He presents the guard that's lined up, so the person will inspect the guards, see what state they are. He will then, the corporal, give the report of what's happened so far to this person. He will then take his mail, let him sign off on the register, and let him be on his way. Of course, if the rond major is fake, if he gives the wrong password, the corporal arrests him, takes him back to the post, and then sends word to the poste de police, the main guardhouse. If it's not a corporal in charge of the post, so if it's an officer or a sergeant, for that matter, in that case, it is it's still the corporal, the consigne that comes out. Yeah, it's the corporal that call. Yeah, he comes out and he receives the warning from the sentry, and he tells the commander of the guard there's a rond major that's taking place. It's the commander of the guard, the sergeant or the officer, that then promptly gets the men out under arms. Once the men are all lined up, the commander, accompanied by 4 privates, joins the sentry that raised the alarm. And upon arriving, the commander will say, qui vive? The person will answer, rond major. The commander will then say, avancez à l'ordre. And once the person is before the commander does not present arms or present swords or anything. He will just give the mot, and the person will respond with the mot de ralliement. Once more, if the rond major is legitimate, the commander takes him back to his post, presents his guard, does his report, takes the mail off him, and gets him to sign off on the register before letting him be on his way. And if it's fake, he arrests him, puts him in his post, and calls the main guardhouse, the poste de police, to come and pick him up. So that's the only difference between, for the rond major, it depends if the post is commanded by a corporal or if it's commanded by anything higher up. So far, so good, gentlemen? Good. Okay. Good. Perfect. Thank you. Now we will look at the famous honors. You remember I mentioned that the least experienced sentry is always the one next to the guardhouse or to the post. And he's going to be in charge of telling the guard whether they have to come out with muskets or not, depending on who they have coming along. This is the details of that particular job. So we're going to do this from the most senior to the least. So His Imperial Majesty the Emperor. Bearing in mind that if the Emperor is coming along, he will certainly have hit one of our sentries at some point, and the sentries will be passing the word down from one another all the way to the post. So this will be going a lot quicker than a horse. The Emperor's coming, the Emperor's coming, the Emperor's coming. The last guy passes the message down to our little young sentry outside the guard, and they say, the Emperor is coming. So as soon as he hears this, he warns the commander of the guard that the Emperor is coming. So the guard can get ready, get dressed, and they know what they have to do. The sentry keeps an eye out, and as soon as he spies His Imperial Majesty from afar, he promptly warns the commander of the post that he's coming, he's almost here. And then he has to calculate the exact time that between him shouting aux armes, to arms, the guard coming out and being completely formed the moment Napoleon gets there. So he has to time this right. He has to warn he's coming, but then he has to shout aux armes sufficiently in advance to give the guard time to come out. So at this aux armes, the commander of the post gets his guard out as quickly as possible. They've been trained for this, remember? He's allowed to drill them as much as he wants. They line up, they present arms, and the drummer beats au chant, just as His Imperial Majesty passes. So the call for His Imperial Majesty is aux armes. He gets a present arms, and he gets beaten au chant. If it's a marshal, a divisional general, a prince, a minister, or any high dignitaries, the call will still be aux armes. but the guard only shoulders arms as a salute, and the drum beats au chant. Brigade generals and prefects, they get aux armes, they get shouldered arms as a salute, and the drummers don't beat anything. The commander of the camp or the garrison, he gets the shout aux armes. The guard, once it comes out, it doesn't shoulder arms or present arms, it just stays with ordered arms in the garde à vous position, and the drummers don't beat anything. Senior officers, colonel, major, chef de bataillon, they get aux armes, they get the garde à vous position, and they don't beat anything. So it's the same for the camp commander, the garrison commander, and the senior regimental commanders. They get exactly the same salute. Everybody else doesn't get a salute. Simple as that. We've now reached the last part of our presentation, which is a little bit of extra information, miscellaneous information about what happens during a guard. So at night, after the evening roll call, so once the tattoo has been beaten, la retraite, once the evening roll call is done, at that point on, all the men inside the poste de police, inside the guardhouse, they change and they wear bonnet de police, sarrau, and they put covers on their gibet for the rest of the night. The commander of the poste de police carries out roll call after each sentry duties of the entire guard. Remember, the sentries get changed in good weather every hour, in bad weather every 2 hours. So at night, every hour and every 2 hours, everybody gets woken up to do roll call to make sure everybody's still there. As during the day, the commander of a post may continue to conduct the drills in order to make sure his guard comes out quickly outside with or without arms. So depending how good they've been, he can continue to make them do that or not, because we might get an alarm during the night. So it's pretty good for them to still be thinking fast. And as during the day, the caporal de poste must present the sentry to the guard commander before and after carrying out a rotation on a single rank. That still doesn't change. In the morning, at 9 a.m., if it's a corporal in charge of a post, he sends a private to take the report, a copy of the report of what's happened during the last 24 hours to Camp HQ or Garrison HQ. If it's a sergeant or an officer that's in charge of the post, they send the caporal de consigne of the post, and he takes the report to HQ. The rapport, so the report, details anything and everything of interest that occurred from the beating of la retraite, so when the garrison shut down, when the camp shut down, all the way up to the roulement, so to the morning wake-up call. That's what this report should include, everything that happened during the night, basically. This is taken from the cahier de police. Everything is noted in the cahier de police, the guardhouse book, during the night, and then the report is on a separate piece of paper drawn from the information within the cahier de police. After the morning roll call, the commander of the poste de police gets given the list of the absent soldiers from this roll call from the sergeant de semaine of the camp or the garrison, and the sergeant major of each company, after the roll call, also hand in any sick notes to the poste de police. And the surgeon, before he does his round for the mornings, comes to the guardhouse and picks them up so that he knows exactly who's sick and where to find them. We talked about punishment briefly. So for ordinary faults, extra chores, extra sentry duties while the soldier is still on guard. If it is something very serious, he's arrested. But the garrison commander, the camp commander, must be informed and give his authorization to do so. And also, lastly, this arrest must also be with the agreement of the post commander. Okay, you cannot just arrest a man who is on guard at duty if you do not have the green light from the garrison camp commander and the post commander. Okay, so if it is something that warrants a more serious punishment than a few chores or extra sentry duty, but that is not sufficiently serious to warrant him being arrested out of the guard, in that case, you wait until his guard is finished, he goes back to the camp, and then you can get him on the ordinary charges. So for insubordination and things like that, we can send him to the salle de police, just like this soldier is, just like what's happening to this soldier in the image you can see. So again, ordinary faults, extra chores, extra sentry duties, something really, really serious, arrest, sent to prison, but you need the guard, the camp guard, and the post commander to the green lighted. One thing we haven't talked about all the way through is the actual guardhouse, the corps de garde. What is inside? Inside is all the necessary furniture for 24 hours with the entire guard. So you need benches, you need tables for them to eat, musket horses for them to put their muskets, beds. You need beds for them to sleep on during the night, etc. Anything that is necessary for the guard to be comfortable, relatively comfortable during their 24-hour service. General and specific instructions, as mentioned before, any instructions are written and glued onto a plank of wood and put on top of one of the walls. If any foreign regiments are in the garrison, they are to occupy the post. Not only do you have all the instructions in French, but on a board next to them, and next to it, you have all the same instructions translated into their language. And last but not least, the cahier de police, the guardhouse book, that remains in the poste de police at all time. It never leaves it. If we need information from it, we do a copy on a blank piece of paper, and that can go out, but the guardhouse book stays inside the guardhouse. And that's it. That's the end of it all. So if there are any extra questions, I'll be taking them now. If you wish yourselves to go and seek out these informations, and by the way, there are a lot more information regarding sentries. I made it as simple as possible in terms of our events, but the regulations go into great detail. For example, a sentry outside of a moat, the sentry inside of the moat, the sentry on the bastion above a moat. It goes into great detail. I tried to simplify it for our events, but if you wish to find out more, you've got the sources here, and good luck with that. There's a lot. If there are any extra questions or thoughts that spring to mind, I'm happy to take them now.
So do you know if any of these, well, let Scott go first.
No, go ahead, Victor, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just going to ask, do you know if any of these sources have been translated into English or only in the original sort of old French with the F, with an S that look, that are double instead of a double F and all that?
Ah, yeah, I see what you mean. The answer is I don't know, because, well, being able to read French, of course, I did not go and seek out an English language source, so I don't know if it exists. That is the simple answer. Maybe, but I haven't come across it. But at the same time, I was not seeking it out.
Maybe it's something I'll do.
No problem.
Scott.
Yeah, I've got several questions, and they kind of range different areas. But the Baron, do any of those original ones exist? I mean, do we know what they look like or how they were carried by the guard?
What? Could you repeat that? What exactly?
What he wants to know is the marron that they carry. Do we have any old ones that are around that we could go and say, oh, that they're really, half-inch thick, 2 inches round, or is it anybody's guess today?
I haven't seen any surviving ones. I haven't heard of any surviving ones. Having said that, they may exist. I don't have access to everything everywhere. But within the 1821 NCO manual, I believe there is a vague description, and they describe them as being wooden discs, round wooden discs, about the size of a palm, and they're flat.
So large, not like a poker chip size. If they're size of a palm.
But by palm, it's like the inside of a palm that you can cup it, sort of. So I would say maybe a little bit bigger than a poker chip, but you're not far off, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
So, and the tin boxes are literally like tin boxes with a detachable top and a slot, and you just post it in there, and then these boxes are collected every morning, emptied out, and that's how they see if people have done their rotation. We've done them for our own garrisons, and we've employed in tin boxes that look like British 1812 mess tins, and we've just put a slot at the top of them. And our own marrons, we have done it. I think they were more or less based on poker chips, but they were in plain wood, a wooden one, and we just put 1, 2, 3, the number that of the rotation.
Okay. And my French is not good, but is it outlet arms when you hold your musket up, when you said you bring it up high to your face?
Haut les armes, literally translated, hide the weapons.
Is that used any other time except for during the guard duties that you discussed today?
I think I did. I may have mentioned it in my soldier school video from last year. Like I say, I may, because I did make a point that within the drill manual there was no explanation how to dismiss the men. However, Bardin in his military dictionary and a couple of National Guard documents state that haut les armes was used as the order to dislocate, if I literally translate, but basically to break up ranks. And Bardin explains it is an order that is given in order to break up ranks. The first thing that's given is right about face, haut les armes, and then he describes the position like the cock almost up again, almost up to chin level, and the musket between the eyes. And then the order to break was supposed to be disloquez-vous, dislocate yourselves, break yourselves. But he said, whereas that phrase was good grammatical French, the military men would just say march, because march was always the execution order.
So where did the rompez les rangs come from? That we're used to?
Rompez les rangs is something I had in my own military career in the 1990s, early 2000s. I do not find rompez les rangs as an order in period sources. I find it as an expression. Les rangs furent rompus. On a rompé les rangs. We broke ranks. The ranks were broken, but not as a order. The only order I have found where Bardin specifically says this is used to break the ranks, to dismiss the men, is demi-tour droite, haut les armes, marche. Some manuals still talk about haut les armes, marche, but instead of doing a demi-tour, they make you face to the right or the left. But again, this is to go into a guardhouse. So if the guardhouse door was on the right, they would make them face right, haut les armes, and then break the ranks so that they were going off in that direction. But Bardin says it's a demi-tour and then haut les armes.
That's funny, because at least in North America, and when I'm in Europe too, very often it's rompez les rangs, and you're dismissed.
Yeah, I've also heard à la paille, to the straw. But yeah, it's not in the 1791 drill manual at all. It's not mentioned anywhere how to dismiss the men. This is the closest we've got, and generally, whether it be in the Bataillon Uni, and I know Jakub in Central Europe, we use the haut les armes to dismiss it based on that. I don't know the extent of other groups, but
okay.
That's the only documented one I've found. We don't use it now in the modern army, but we do use romper, but not romper les rangs, just romper.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions?
Last two. On when a sentry is given an alarm and it's passed down the line of sentries back to the guard post, is there any indication which post the alarm comes from, so that helps the sergeant of the guard to know how far down the line he's going, or does he just keep going until he finds it?
It does not go into that detail. What it says is, as the word is being passed down, the sergeant comes up. So the first sentry outside, who called you? Bob. Bob called me up there. So he would go to Bob, and then Bob would say, it's Jacques. He'd go to Jacques and he'd keep going until he found that sentry.
Okay. And then finally, when somebody's advancing on a post and the sentry calls out and they continue to advance, he calls 3 times and they keep advancing. So when he fires, is he instructed to fire with the intention of striking the target, or fire just to alert that he's being advanced on?
No, it's not a warning fire. It's not a warning. It's by that point, it does not say shoot to kill, but it specifically says shoot and then call the guard. That's how it's phrased. But the way it's worded, it's to defend oneself.
Okay.
So it's not a warning shot. No.
Yeah, and then of course your bayonet is mounted, so you have ways to protect yourself after you fired your shot.
Yeah, and also once you've fired, you're supposed to be falling back towards your post. If it's an overwhelming enemy, then you're falling back towards your post. So you'd be soaking up the sentries. You'd be onto the sentry next to you. Maybe you'd be falling back, and hopefully by that point, you've got guys coming up from the post, and you'd have the drummer beating the alarm, so everybody would be forming up.
Sounds good.
I mean, they're pretty, like I said, most of these, 85 to 90% of all that I've described to you, we were still doing it in the late 90s, early 2000s. We were just not shooting people, if I remember. We were not challenging 3 times. We challenged twice. 3 times was a bit too much.
Well, thank you.
No problem at all. Any other questions?
No, and I think to answer your original question, I think your French version, people understood it quite well. I think it's very good. Yeah. So there you go. But like I said, this is something that can be easily put into a reenactment scenario. I think, of course, I'm not advocating people being stuck in the guardhouse 24 hours a day. Yeah, you can manage it as you want. But for example, at Fontainebleau last year, we did it with all the participants there, and we made 6 rotations throughout the weekend, and each rotation was 2 hours long. So everybody during that weekend had 2 hours either in the guardhouse or as sentry as part of those 2 hours. So they had a little bit of the experience, but not too much has to, how can I put this, make them regret coming. Yeah, now we did that at Austerlitz, New York, where we had sentries at the entrance, basically challenging all the tourists coming in, and we rotated them every hour. So people got the experience of marching out to the position and exchanging sentries, the old sentry, the new sentries, and going back to camp, at which time then they were dismissed, but everybody got their chance, and we had sentries at the gate all day.
All you were lacking is a guardhouse for the sentries to interact with.
Yeah, but they were basically, at least they had their sentry duty. At 4 p.m. when the tourists were told that's it, then, you know, we basically just put the barrier down across the road, and we didn't have sentries at night.
And like I said, you don't have to have a guard post with the full contingent, 2 corporals, a sergeant, the officer, etc. You could always say we don't have enough people, but this is a little post, so you can have a corporal that does the commander, the consigne, the pause, with a few guys in the back.
Yeah.
That might be better suited to North American Napoleonics.
Yeah. And
in terms of numbers.
Only night guards we had were from the cavalry. There was one man out watching the picket line with all the horses. And again, that was rotated through the night so that people would get some sleep.
But as you've seen, patrols only are supposed to happen at night. Rounds only happened at night, and the guard, the ronde majeur happens at night. The only thing that happens during the day is the visite.
Yep.
You don't get patrols. But there you go. I think we will stop the recording if no one else has another question.
All right. Well, Marc, thank you. Delightful as always. Do you have any hint of what your next topics would be?
I do. I'll be looking at the drum calls, but I'm working with somebody else for that. I also have a very long-standing project that I guarantee you will be very, very. It's an excellent project. Saluting, military courtesy. I've been working with Mr. Martin Lancaster for over a year on this. It's almost ready, but I guarantee you when it comes out, it will be very, very, a very, very good presentation, very useful for everyone.
All right, on that note, I guess it's time to say thank you. And anybody who wants a copy, send me an email. And I believe you were doing $5 for the copy of both the PowerPoint and the audio portion. So on that note, good night, gentlemen, and we'll see you again in a month or two.